Hi everyone, it's B.Chavez from EvilGenius Sports Performance. I'd like to welcome you back to the EvilGenius Sports Performance video blog. It's volume 5, I believe. And I'd like to continue our dialogue on common language, on defining terms, so that in the future, when we have conversations on sports performance, everyone knows what everything means. That's the true beauty and true definition of science, is that when a word is spoken, everyone in the room agrees on what it means. You don't necessarily have to agree on how to apply it or the end result, but you have to agree on what specifically is being said. So again, a small series on common language, and today's term is a pretty simple one. We're going to cover it pretty quickly, but it's necessary to fit into the whole of sports performance, and that is training frequency. We've covered intensity, we've covered volume, we've covered a number of things. Today is training frequency. And topically, really simple topic, really simple term. Frequency, definition, textbook definition is just how often something repeats. The frequency of a wave, the frequency of your television or radio or what have you. It's just simply how often that wave repeats, how much energy is in that unit. So same thing with training. It's how often you repeat, how often you go to the gym. If you train 5 days a week, very topically, your training volume or your training frequency rather is 5. You go to the gym 5 times. Where it gets a little different, a little harder to quantify, is when you have multiple modalities. Myself, just a simple musclehead, simple strength athlete. Really, my training, frequency is weight training frequency. I go to the gym. Personally, I weight train 3 days a week. Squat on Monday, bench on Wednesday, deadlift on Friday. So my frequency is very simple. But even with my simple rotation, my frequency is 3, but yet my sub-frequency, the frequency within that, is that I actually only perform each muscular system, squat, bench, deadlift, once. So you could say my total frequency is 3, but my body part or body system or individual lift, depending on the language and even the system you use, would be 1. But even with me, even with my simplistic system, it's not even that simple. So I go to the gym 3 times. I train each body part, if you will, once per week. But yet, for instance, you could analyze the squat and say, well, there's a lot of hamstring in squat. And then, there's Wednesday, and then you come to Friday and you see deadlifts, and well, there's a lot of hamstring there as well. So in a way, my overall frequency is 3, my sub-frequency is 1, but specifically when you look at hamstrings, it's actually 2, or 2 halves even, depending on how you word it. And it's even more insidious with other lifters. Your average bodybuilder breaks things down a great deal more. So say they're part of the Monday contingent and they bench press on Monday. So their frequency is 1. But then a few days later, they train shoulders. Well, there's a lot of shoulders in bench press, so that's sort of 2. But then a few days later, they train arms. Well, they use some triceps on Monday to bench press and on Wednesday to do shoulder presses, and now they're going to train them. So in a way, that tricep frequency is 3. Now, keep in mind, I'm not saying any of this is wrong. It's obviously right. Bodybuilders have worked out over the years, the systems that make them grow very well, and this is pretty acknowledged training. But my point is, you have to understand what's going on under the hood. You have to be able to recognize it so that as you're journaling this and you do or do not like your results, you have to be honest about really how much training, when are you doing. Frequency is a very simple concept, but yet it's possibly the most important concept. And then again, it gets even more insidious. Say you do cardiovascular exercise. Say you weight train 5 days a week and do cardio 3 days a week. Now you've got a frequency of total of 8, but it's actually 5 and 3. And then there's quadricep involvement on different days because you're probably biking or walking, so there's layers upon layers, or what in the 70s and 80s was called overlap. A lot of people talked about athletic overlap, and then it gets even more insidious. If you were an actual athlete, say you run or play basketball or something. So now you've got this weight training frequency, you've got a cardiovascular frequency, and you actually have an athletic frequency. All of these things stagger and matter. this is not the forum in which to talk about the actual organizing of all of that. That's more for periodization and some other topics. But it's important that under the heading of understanding what frequency is, you actually understand that it is this very, very convoluted gradient of things. Even myself, I actually consider even the frequency of my restoration work. I do, I foam roll, I stretch, I do some PNF stretching, I do even contrast baths, contrast showers. All of that, I consider that frequency in relation to my training frequency, so that if there's a problem, I can modulate it and move it. I make graphs and adjust things. And this is also what I do for clients. We put down a basic frequency of, you're going to do this on this day, and then we start to fill in these sub-frequencies, and we look for overlap, and we look for commonalities, and we look for gaps. Very often, if you put this stuff down very carefully on a weekly or monthly plan, you actually begin to see gaps. So frequency is a very topically very simple subject. It's just how often something happens. Under the hood, like most things in this genre, not nearly so simplistic, but that in itself is enough to give you some food for thought. And next week, next month, next year, when we're talking in periodization or some other fine point in training frequency, or the frequency of X, Y, or Z comes up, we can refer back to this, and we can all agree that frequency is simply how often something happens, and then sub-quantified as what specific type of activity it is and how it affects the others. So training frequency, pretty simplistic. That's all I have for you today. Before I go, I very much would like to take the second, since we're not quite at the 10-minute mark that I normally run these to, I would like to take the second to thank all of you. These videos have been very successful, got a lot of views, got a lot of feedback, which is really what I care about more. It's not that a million people watch it, it's that one person watched it and took the time to think and talk to someone, talk to me, contact people. That's the whole goal of this, is to make dialogue, to improve all of our lifting. The only way we can get better is we can compare notes and talk and make better choices for the future. Most of my competitive career is behind me, and I really want to see someone do the 1,000-pound raw squat. I really want to see the quadruple bodyweight deadlifts in every weight class. This is stuff that I'm excited to see, and I'm convinced that this is the way we get there. We lay down some fundamental stuff, we talk about it, we get thousands of people trying thousands of things, and we compare notes, and we pick the winners. We decide what's working best, and by process of elimination, we can come to the single best method of training. I think that myself and EvilGenius Sports Performance, I think we're on to a lot of that. We have some very effective methods, but we don't have them all, and we don't have even possibly the best. It's out there. It's understandable. We can do this. If we all get together and work hard, we can do it. And I'm very excited to be part of it, and I'm very excited that a lot of you have let me into your training realm to help with that. So I thank you very much. I encourage you to like and circle and do all the things, clever social media things you can do with the posts and videos. And for those of you that have done that, I appreciate it very much. I've tried to thank you all specifically at the time, but just as a blanket, I thank you and I appreciate it. And until next time, B.Chavez, EvilGenius Sports Performance, stay strong.